My name is Kris Larson, and my position here is I'm general manager, but I've been the founding farmer and farm manager for the operation. This year, we've promoted Jeff Adams to be farm manager, and Elizabeth Millar to be retail manager. Megan Tominski is our assistant farm manager as well. So we have a pretty full staff. So, yeah, I'm still the farmer, but we're definitely promoting people aggressively,
That's awesome.
getting new farmers started. Yeah.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And can you kind of tell me a little bit more about Theodora?
Mm-hmm.
What you got going on here?
Yeah, Theodora Farms is a 10-acre vegetable farm. We also grow herbs and flowers and some annual fruits. We grow strawberries as well. In the past, we've done melons. This year, we're entering our third season. We have a lot of experience, though. This will be my 20th or 22nd year in vegetable farming. But Theodora Farms is a new farm, and we founded it in 2019. Had our first production year in 2020, and then so this is our third year. We did 2 days ago. Well, I guess if this is timely, it could be months ago when people are watching it. But in the middle of March, we were inspected for organic certification. So we're applying for organic certification. So hopefully that comes through, and we'll be certified. We use regenerative practices, all natural methods. We do a lot of work by hand. And yeah, really try to grow the best crops. We really emphasize building soil. So that's what we consider to be our primary job, is to build soil fertility, soil tilth. And we trust that the soil and the sun and air and all that will, and the microbes will then produce really top quality vegetables. So that's our approach.
Great. And you mentioned that you've been doing this for a while. Can you tell me a little bit more about kind of like what came before Theodora and what kind of inspired you to start Theodora?
Yeah, no. So personally, I started farming while I was going to school in California. My first exposure was in 1998, and I did a farm apprenticeship on a small organic vegetable farm in Oregon in 2002. I also worked there in 2003, and then I moved out to Massachusetts and served as a farm apprentice and then a farm assistant manager 2004 and 2005. At that point, my wife and I and our newborn son moved to this area for me to serve as head farmer at the community supported garden at La Vista, which is in Godfrey, Illinois, here. That's a 4-acre CSA farm. In 2010, my wife and I started Riverbend Roots Farm here in Alton, and we operated that for 7 years. At that point, we needed to find a permanent home. We were leasing land at the time, 1 year at a time, and it took a few years, but this opportunity here, which is also in Godfrey, became available. I was recruited to start a new farm in 2019 on a much larger property that is owned by people who intend for it to be an organic vegetable farm. So that's how that came to be. Yeah.
Great. And why did you choose the farming path?
That's a great question. That's a loaded question. I volunteered on a farm when I was much younger in my free time and realized right away that I loved the work. Farming, and I haven't done much more than vegetable farming. Farming uses the best of you. It uses a wide range of skill sets, a lot of problem solving. It uses your physical abilities. It uses your ability to manage multiple systems, as well as it involves marketing and sales. Involves a lot of math, we write a lot of newsletters, so we have to be creative with that. So it utilizes all your skill sets, and it really, farming also benefits from you being at your best. So if you want to excel at farming, it will reciprocate the actual job, the experience of the job. So that's what drew me into farming. I also realized early on that it is possible to make a living at it. You have to manage really well. And there's parts of the work that are, you are unique to farming, working with the land. So we're out in the soil working a lot. You get to work outside a lot. So on beautiful days like we can have in the spring and fall, and even throughout the summer, you get to work out in it. So those are some of the main benefits of it. Yeah. Plus, it's the people. That's it's like there's working with people at markets, in the farm, in the fields are really great. Yeah.
Gotcha. So would you say your favorite part about it is actually doing the work outside, or do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you have a least favorite aspect of the job?
Probably working outside.
Yeah. That's fair.
No, it's the least favorite part. I mean, the specific things are we use materials like row cover, row cover is an excellent, which goes by names like Agribon or Remay. That's an insect barrier that we put on. This is just a very specific thing. We often joke that that's not why we got into farming, was to utilize this very large material that blows in the wind and is you have to pull on and off all the time. So that's an example of how tedious some tasks can be when you're trying to grow things when you are growing things organically, which means you have to protect your plants against pests and diseases. There's some materials that you have to put on and off every day, and it tends to be difficult without the right number of people. Farming can be relentless. You are never really able to rest on your laurels, so if you do something great, the next day might bring a new set of challenges. So it's always an ongoing sequence of challenges that you have to deal with. That's a pro and a con of farming, because you get to continue to solve problems, but once you solve problems, you got a new set the next day. Almost every season we face or deal with a problem that we haven't experienced before.
What kind of problems are you facing right now? Are there any specific ones that are?
Yeah.
Can you tell me
yeah. I mean, mostly it's a new disease or a new pest.
Yeah.
But that's also reflected in the diversity of the microbial populations in the soil. So having insects and microbes / diseases is what we want on the land, because that brings a lot of vitality to the systems, to the ecosystem. However, it also means that we're always facing some new microbe / disease or bug that has discovered the farm. Right, and then you obviously deal with weather. Right now, we're talking in spring here, and we're waiting for the first really good opportunity for our first planting outside of the year. And it's unpredictable. I mean, it's not unpredictable per se. We can predict that it's going to be volatile, or we don't know exactly when the rain's going to come, how much we're going to get.
Right.
And once the rain stops, are we ever going to get it again?
Right.
And then there's temperature fluctuations.
Right.
Last year in the spring, we were able to get all of our first plantings in, and then we had I think a record-breaking frost, or one that was approaching record-breaking. Where the temperature dropped into the low 20s.
Right.
In late April.
Yeah.
So it's weather-related challenges.
Right.
Pests and diseases. Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit more about, so you guys are organic farmers, right? So can you tell me a little bit more about kind of what your approach to addressing like a pest or a disease problem would be?
Yeah, so a good example is squash and cucumbers, and we choose the right varieties. We choose varieties that should grow vigorously in our climate and on our soil. So the idea is that a healthy plant will resist pests and diseases more than an unhealthy plant. So that's our first approach. We work with soil fertility to enhance that so that the plants can grow really well and be healthy. We do put these wire hoops and a row cover over squash and cucumbers, for instance, that is innocuous to the plant, but it creates a physical barrier between the plant and the bug, but it still allows sunlight, air, and water through, so rain can fall through it. We use insect netting. We do pull that off at one point, and then there is a botanical spray that's derived from the marigold family called pyganic. It's pyrethrins, which are a natural substance, just a concentrated natural substance from African marigold, I think. And that's effective on applying to newly hatched squash bugs or cucumber beetles. So we'll meticulously monitor the plants for eggs and newly hatched bugs or pests, and then we'll use a botanical substance like pyganic to apply to those. And the organic sprays or pest management materials are fairly weak. They tend to dissipate. They tend to be a botanical or a natural substance that dissipates fairly quickly, so you have to apply it with good timing. So choosing the right varieties and good timing and the proper use of organic materials is how we manage pests for the most part, yeah.
And so how, just to kind of shed a little light, like how does that compare to like what kind of like a commercial vegetable grower would do in order to manage pests?
Like a non-organic operation?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that experience,
Yeah.
but my understanding is they're emphasizing genetics more and more. So for instance, there's one botanical substance we use called BT. That's Bacillus thuringiensis. That's a bacteria. It's a natural thing, and that is an organically approved botanical spray that we will use to prevent worms. So my understanding is that increasingly the biotechnology companies have been able to change the genetics of, or modify the genetics of plants like corn and potentially other plants, but I know corn, to produce the protein unique to Bacillus thuringiensis in the plant, so that a bug or a cabbage looper will land on the plant, eat the plant, and then ingest the protein of Bacillus thuringiensis. That then resolves that problem.
Yeah.
So that makes BT, or the protein associated with BT, endemic throughout the entire crop for the entire season. What we do is we have an acute application that we do only when the bug is present, only on those crops, and so that it doesn't affect all the other arthropods out there, like the monarch butterfly larvae. So we're just affecting the cabbage loopers when they're present in that moment. That's one difference I'm aware of. We also don't use Roundup, so we don't use any type of herbicide. We do only mechanical cultivation of weeds, and we don't use any other harsh chemical, any general chemical that persists in the environment. So all of our pest and disease applications are certified by an organization called OMRI, which is OMRI, or are approved by organic certifiers.
Great.
So that's what we use for that, yeah.
And do you use any sort of like fertilizer?
We do. Okay. Yeah, we do use fertilizer. We need to replace some nutrients that are removed from the harvest. For instance, if you eat a head of lettuce, that lettuce has a lot of nutrition, especially from a local farm when it's fresh picked. You're getting a lot of vitamin C and other things. Well, that nutrition that you're eating originated in the soil. So the more we harvest with vegetables, with annual vegetables, we're removing nutrients from the soil in the form of food. So we do have to replace that. And we primarily use a lot of cover crops and composts to replace that and build up the soil fertility. But for some of the minerals, we will order inputs from, or amendments from Midwestern BioAg, which is an organization out up in Wisconsin. and they're fantastic. And they're really aligned with our values for soil management. We'll order materials or soil amendments from them to make sure we have enough nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, and other major and minor nutrients. So that's what we add to the soil. In addition to compost and cover crops, crop rotations, and we also use natural mulches as well. So we'll use straw mulch.
Yeah.
To prevent weeds.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's see. You've answered actually a lot of my questions so far. Is there anything about your job or about farming that you feel like people kind of like there are misconceptions about? Or if there's anything that, like, I don't know. Yeah, anything you've noticed about your job that, like,
sure.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no. A couple thoughts. Misconceptions that people may have. Sometimes there's two misconceptions from different directions. One is that we tend to be romanticized. Farmers, like small scale farmers, tend to be romanticized. It feels a lot more normal to us. And what I mean romanticized is people will see images. One thing people need to know is when they see beautiful pictures of a farm, those are snapshots. We often will only show pictures of a bed of vegetables when they're freshly cultivated and weeded. Most of the time there's a lot of weeds in there, and they're in different stages of their life, so sometimes they're dying back. But the job is challenging, and when you're in farming, you definitely don't romanticize it. It feels like a regular job, and if there's anything wonderful or beautiful about a moment, the next moment it could be raining or freezing, or 100 degrees. So the conditions do shift all the time. So that's one misconception, that it's just like, one example is that someone can come out and volunteer on a farm and have an amazing experience. It's not like that every day, whatever it is. On the other hand, we can often get dismissed as hobbyists by the commercial food industry, because we are small scale. We do technically garden relative to like a corn and soybean operation, or even a large cattle operation or livestock operation. But so on the one hand, we can be romanticized. On the other hand, we can be dismissed as an unviable operation. So from the commercial agricultural or conventional or industrial agricultural point of view, we are often, the economic impact of what we do is often ignored. Our revenue per acre is often 2 orders of magnitude more than a conventional operation. So there's a lot of economic activity that's driven by even the smallest of farms. The yields that we can get per acre, even during a bad year, are often far in excess of what a much larger operation can do. So that's one potential misconception.
That's interesting.
So there's two directions. One is that people think we're a lot more than we are, and other they think we're a lot less than we are. Yeah.
That's interesting. I know that I feel as though small scale farming is getting kind of pushed out of the picture, maybe not, by like larger scale farms. I guess, can you talk a little bit more about like kind of the bigger picture of farming and like what kind of like how small scale farms kind of fit into that?
Yeah, that's a great question. That warrants a larger discussion. And farming is always the same, and it always has been. You plant a seed in the ground, the seed grows into a plant, and you harvest it for food. It doesn't matter what scale you're at. However, when it comes to marketing food, there's absolutely, we experience the force of economies of scale. That the larger your operation is and the simpler it is, the more the cost per unit goes down. So we're always facing that. I define farming as contrasted to gardening, as farming being something that is commercial. It is growing food for sale to someone else who will eat it. Whereas gardening I define as what you grow for yourself or your family or a community, not for sale, or it could be a landscape. So farming is a commercial business, assuming sales. And sales only happen if people are willing to pay the price. And the smaller you are, you have to compete in some level, and we generally try to compete on quality. I'm sorry, not generally, we absolutely compete on quality, meaning the food has to be better, it has to taste better, and we believe that. We also believe that what we do at a small scale is much healthier. There is a misconception that it costs more when in fact it doesn't, but it costs more to acquire it because you have to go to a farmer's market out of your way. You have to go to a farm stand out of your way. You have to be a CSA member, which loses control over what you get each week. So there is built-in cost for a lifestyle, but ultimately it's so much better for you. However, those costs do come into play. And so when I look at the overall food economy, Wendell Berry was quoted as saying, he has a quote that eating is an agricultural act. And so what people choose to eat will drive agricultural decisions. And when our individual and household food budgets are 10% of our household income or less, then that's going to drive the pressure towards larger farms with larger economies of scale, lower costs per unit, and we're going to get lower quality food by the nature of it. So the future of food is really based on the choices that everybody makes. If they want better food, if we want better food, you grow it yourself in your own garden, or you grow on small local farms, because you're going to get fresher food. You're going to get a much wider range of fresh foods, but you're going to have to acquire it,
Right.
Find it and pay for it, and you're going to have to make sure that the farm supports the farmer itself, the farmer themselves. Can a farmer have a career in farming? If you have a career in farming, you can get better at it, you can be more professional, and you can bring down costs naturally. So we've got to be able to support farmers and support local farms.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so what, you've touched on this, and I'm sure this is like pretty clear to you, but like what is the benefit of supporting farms such as yours and eating produce from small scale family farmers rather than choosing commercial large scale farms?
The primary benefit of local small farms and buying from them is you get a much higher quality product. It's fresh. It is also going to be tastier because we can choose varieties based on flavor a lot more so than you can if you're shipping in produce, because we know that the time from harvest to eating is almost immediate. So the produce that we grow does not need to be, the varieties that we choose do not have to have the ability to be shipped across the country and to be in storage for multiple weeks. We can grow the tastiest varieties that won't hold up to shipping because we know you're going to eat it within 1 to 7 days or within a week, if not today. And so we can choose among so many different varieties of different vegetables based on flavor and quality. So the flavor and quality of the food is going to be so much higher. Plus it's going to be fresher, meaning you're going to get all those extra flavors. It's probably going to be more nutritious because the soil will get a lot more attention on a smaller scale. And the other benefits, so that's the direct benefits to households, or someone eating it and buying it. The other benefits are that we employ a lot more people on a smaller scale because we have higher revenue per acre. So there's, and also you have the chance to know your farmer, which means you're going to have an influence over what's grown. we make most of our, if not all of our decisions that we make for our crop plans and what varieties we choose to grow and how much we choose to grow are based on what our customers want, what they buy, what they talk about, what they ask us about. So there's a huge influence that people have over what's grown and how when it's grown locally. So we love to know people. That's one of our favorite parts of the job for across the board. But we also employ a lot of people. So there's an outsized economic impact for the regional economy when there's a lot more local farms.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you said, so there's there's a farm manager, an assistant farm manager, and then remind me the other positions at the farm or other,
So so I'm general manager. Okay. We have a farm manager and an assistant farm manager, and then we have a retail manager. We do have a farm store on site, and so Elizabeth manages that on site. And then we have 4 field assistant positions, and those are our farmer positions. Those are the people who are doing everything on the farm, from sowing seeds to planting and weeding, cultivating, pest management, irrigation, and harvesting, and then sales, at the farmer's market.
Right.
So and then we'll have another full-time retail person. So we have up to 10 or 11 full-time employees.
Wow.
Yeah, on the farm.
Yeah. And how do you imagine the future of Theodora?
Good question. We are expanding. So we have our vegetable operation. We do have a greenhouse. So we do have a small plant sale that we offer to the public. If there's a demand for that, we'll continue to grow that. We do have a farm kitchen that we've built out in the farmhouse. It's a commercially certified kitchen. So we have baking that happens here. We plan to produce ready-to-eat meals, grab-and-go items, fresh from the farm. Other value-added items like anything canned or processed that we can do sauces and salsas and dressings. Excuse me. We also have the potential for getting into fruits and livestock. So depending on the opportunities that we have, we're structured to grow. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're promoting people to manage the farm.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that we can be able to expand our what we do. Mushrooms. I mean, our approach is that if there's a need for it, what we first look for is who's doing it out there. Like right now, there's plenty of people producing microgreens. So our approach is to reinforce what they're doing, to support them, to help them sell more or grow more. If there was a need for that wasn't being met, then we would then explore getting into it ourselves,
right, as
an example. So that's how we approach what we're doing, and we're setting ourselves up to be able to do that.
Sweet.
Yeah, but we also I do want to point out that we absolutely prioritize working with other farms. I mean, our farm store is not a competitor. It should be an avenue for more, giving customers more access to local food.
Great.
We are competing with the larger grocery stores, not other farms. So other farms are our partners, and that we hope that our success expands the reach of local foods. So that's why we're working with organizations that can help us with the marketing and distribution. And then we don't have to do that. So we'll market and distribute through other organizations who can get really good at that.
Right.
But if that didn't exist, then we'll expand through there. So that's what's going to dictate our future.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This was a
cool.
really insightful interview, and I really appreciate your time.